great.
Yeah, and the color?
Fabulous.
Anyway, I know. Oh, we're missing the shot. We're missing the shot. This is real journalism. Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Longbottom, and this is Nat Negro Wild. Today, I'm out in the field trying to get some footage of the ever-elusive water boys. And if you live in Atlanta, you know this species all too well.
Hey. Come on, man. I know you thirsty. Hey, 1 for 5, 2 for 20.
So some key markers that you'll know when you see the water boys is, first of all, they travel in packs. Yeah? And then they all have on this signature hoodie with the sweat of determination on their brow because it's been 95 degrees for the past 3 months.
That, bro. Give me that. Give me your cash up.
You got cash up?
I got it.
Oh, look, I think you can hear their mating call now.
Oh, here you go, fam.
I got gas, too.
Wow. And there you have it, folks. Just a couple of young people trying to get to the bag. But the thing is, here in the city of Atlanta specifically, they're gaining a bad rep. Why? Because no matter how native or indigenous to the community they are, the new residents, the white ones, can't seem to get used to them. And they're afraid. But the thing about it is, water boys exist in states across the United States, like New York, New Jersey, Philly even. And nobody's having this problem with criminalizing our water boys. And we want to get to the bottom of it right here, right now today, guys. I think we're about to get an exclusive Places People.
Hey, fool, look at that lady over there. She making the block hot.
What the hell she doing over there?
I don't know. Let's go see, though, because she ain't finna be... Hey, Charlotte, can we help you?
Oh, I'm actually here trying to get some footage of people.
Can we get you some
like
water?
you.
Some water over here making the block hot.
Hold on. She got a camera and shit. What's up?
Hey, what's up?
Hey,
Want some
what
water?
it is? You know what time
Hey,
it
you
is.
know what we gotta do?
Waterman.
Hey, bro, tell me on Instagram.
Hey, Waterman, 4-4. Shawty
Hey.
know you thirsty. Shawty know you thirsty.
Hey,
Shawty know you yell. Hey, what's
Hey,
up?
shit.
What you doing?
What you dancing?
So actually, guys, we were trying to get some footage of people like you and
Like us?
Yeah,
What
the
you mean?
water boys.
Oh, you cool?
I just meant if you could share your stories with us, we'd be really grateful.
See, she trying to talk proper now.
Shawty, you think this a game?
Not at all. I
Hey,
think this is
be
real
clear,
life.
Shawty, this a legacy I'm running. My granddaddy was a water boy, so I stand here a water man. Shawty, don't disrespect me.
Type shit, bro.
What?
In our
Absolutely.
experience, we out here getting money, getting paper. What the hell you getting?
Wow. Oh, are you struggling with any of your customer
Well,
base?
look like I struggle. Hey, Shawty, be clear. I don't do this. I don't need no damn
Wow.
money. But
Why you
this out here,
asking
this
so
a
many questions
lifestyle.
like you
Wow.
interrogating
Huh?
us?
No,
You think I
no,
care
not
about
at
the
all.
water? You
Not
think
at
I
all.
care about the
Wow,
water? Hey,
that
bro, you
is.
gotta care about the
Come on,
water.
bro, we only got
She's
some
poured
now.
one out for the
Dummy.
homies, everybody. This is also a staple. Now, actually, I think the whole team could use some water. Do you guys
Like,
mind?
Yeah.
1,
I
2,
got
3,
you,
4,
wait,
5,
what?
6,
Hey, you look
10 of
real
them.
thirsty.
10 of them.
I
Yes,
can't count
absolutely.
that high. You can
Absolutely.
get
that
5.
Yeah. We'll be right here when you get back.
Right here.
Right here when you get back. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Water Main, everybody. Water Main.
Don't forget the
And there you
fofo.
have it. And there you have it. Just determined. Just determined. Just raw. Just gritty and misunderstood. You know what I'm saying? Due to things like gentrification and criminalization, our water boys may not be out here for very much longer. So make sure you don't let them go extinct in your city. Hey, everybody, let's get out of here before they get back. Yeah. Hurry up, people. Look alive. Thanks, Monica. Welcome back to the People's Brief, everyone. I'm your host, Lynae Vanee, and today we're getting into crime, or at least the process of criminalization and the perceived issue of black-on-black crime. And let me be the first one to tell you, there's no such thing. I know. There are some in our community who hold the belief that we can't get mad when police kill us when we're killing each other every day. This sentiment is widely proselytized in high crime areas with dense black populations, i.e. Memphis, St. Louis, Baltimore, Detroit, Oakland, and where we may use it as a motivator to end intraracial conflict, others use it to further perpetuate state-sanctioned violence against black people, saying, if they don't care about themselves, why should we? Black-on-black crime has been used as a scapegoat to justify the disposability of black bodies for years. But crime in black communities is not a black issue, it's a socioeconomic issue. Any sociology class will tell you that crime is rooted in socioeconomic insufficiency or imbalance. This simply means a lack of resources to meet everyday demands of sustenance, sustainability, or safety. Except, of course, in the case of white-collar crime, where that almost always comes from want of gain or power. So what about violent crime? Problem kids in school? Juvenile delinquents? Well, any psychology class will tell you that maladaptive, violent, or even deviant behavior is a product of trauma or mental imbalance. So, it begs the question, which group of people are most commonly and historically purposefully impoverished, chronically unemployed, or excluded from job placement or upward mobility, lack access to proper education, are more likely to have disrupted home lives or disrupted family dynamics due to high incarceration rates and mortality rates of Black men and women, or are more susceptible to drug addiction. Can you take a guess? The moral of the story, folks, is Black on Black crime is in fact white people's fault. And I feel like I said that already. I feel like I said it 5 years ago.
So the next time that you want to say Black on Black crime should be addressed before, not even just white people, Black people, you too. Don't fall for their traps. Black on Black crime is a direct result of systematic oppression. Because if you didn't put drugs in our neighborhood, we wouldn't be killing each other over drugs. If police were protecting Black communities like they protect white communities, we wouldn't have to create gangs that now contribute to gang violence. If you never would have made Black men think that hypermasculinity was the only way to prove themselves in America, they wouldn't come home and beat their wives, rape their nieces and nephews, or even strangers, and they wouldn't feel like they had to kill Black trans women. So, this is the life y'all created for us.
Action.
Big ups to Monica earlier for that cutting-edge field journalism on those young criminals roaming the streets of Atlanta.
Such braverism.
It's unfortunate that these gaggles of thugs who call themselves the YNs are endangering communities with hardworking American families that are just trying to thrive.
Well,
It's become clear now, and even throughout history, that urban communities just breed criminality. Looking at the numbers, people from certain neighborhoods have made up majority of the prison population since the system as we know it today has been in existence.
and it really makes you question why. Thinking logistically, low-income neighborhoods are at risk for a number of socioeconomic issues like homelessness, unemployment, addiction, and mental illness. Do we think that these issues contribute to those crime rates in these neighborhoods?
I just can't see how. Do suburban neighborhoods not experience the same issues?
Well, according to the...
Of course they do, and they just aren't going to jail nearly as much as, urban communities.
Sure, but if we're looking at the actual data...
Nixon and Reagan, those guys had it right. Law and order policies is the way to go. You have to meet fire with fire.
Well, it's interesting that you bring them up. Nixon famously utilized law and order rhetoric in response to the race riots of the late 1960s. Many historians and scholars agree that his politics simply ignored the suppression of Black Americans in this country to win over poor, disenfranchised whites in the South in an effort to win that presidential election.
Okay, Jack. Even if that was true,
I'm pretty sure it's true, Dick.
Then what would that even have to do with the high crime rates in Black neighborhoods?
And there it is. No, I'm with you, Dick. The drug use, gang violence, and violent crime that runs rampant in inner city neighborhoods should be addressed.
Thank you.
But Nixon and Reagan,
Don't you dare.
Nixon and Reagan were racists who utilized dog whistle politics and employed the Southern strategy to stir up deep-seated racist sentiment in white voters who could never get over losing the Civil War and deeply resented the successes of the Civil Rights Movement. Overt racism was no longer socially acceptable. So men like Nixon and Reagan, you too, Lyndon B. Johnson, utilized law and order politics to criminalize Black people for crimes white people were committing at roughly the same rates to stamp out political dissent and pack out our prisons with an entire generation of Black men to uphold racial hierarchies without being labeled as racist.
Yeah, get this guy out of here. Thanks. That's enough. Security. Thank you so much.
You know what? One more thing.
What?
George Bush doesn't care about Black people.
Yeah, all right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let's go ahead and cut to commercial break. Now. Jesus Christ.
In an effort to contextualize the myth of Black on Black crime and the criminalization of Blackness in America, it was anticipated this foray into history would start around the 1960s, particularly with the shift from overt to covert racism on the heels of a successful civil rights movement, where we see an intentional criminalization of Black people on a national scale for political aim. But as it turns out, coordinated efforts to criminalize Black people, and specifically Black men, began almost immediately after the emancipation of enslaved Americans in 1865. As Ava DuVernay so masterfully explored in her documentary 13th, slavery never went away. It remained legal within the criminal justice system, and a campaign to situate Blackness as criminal ensued to rope them back into the forced, free labor they'd just been emancipated from. This meant that from the late 19th century onward, Black men, Black people, were overwhelmingly represented in crime and incarceration data despite making up a small percentage of the population. This continued for decades and proliferated with the onset of the Great Migration of Black Americans to urban hubs and northern and western cities during the 1950s and 60s. In the North, South, and out west, socioeconomic issues such as homelessness, unemployment, addiction, and mental illness were routinely criminalized and addressed punitively in Black neighborhoods, with rehabilitative programs concentrated mainly in white and suburban neighborhoods. This long-standing myth of black criminality, backed by statistics, laid easy groundwork for politicians to spin narratives that work to their advantage. By positioning black people as criminals, politicians could feed the industrial prison complex, position themselves as tough on crime, which always posed favorably with Americans, and keep racial hierarchies in place despite the perceived successes of the civil rights movement. Resistance groups, like the Black Panthers and other politically outspoken organizations, were targeted and labeled as terrorist groups, effectively looping them into the narrative that blackness breeds criminality, and essentially letting those with the power to enact change off the hook from addressing the rampant systemic oppression affecting urban communities. By the 1970s, Black Americans had begun to constitute a majority of the prison population across the nation. Thanks to targeted policy changes, gross sentencing disparities quickly emerged. In cities like Philadelphia, the percentage of black prisoners grew from 50% in 1970 to 95% by 1974. These kinds of incarceration rates would soon become the country's modus operandi as the popularity of law and order politics would continue into the 1980s and 1990s. Reagan's war on drugs and key legislation like Bill Clinton's 1994 crime bill would serve as the nail in the coffin for yet another generation of black men. Now, we know what they look like, but really, the double standards the law holds for white and black people committing crimes can be complex. But if you ask me, a good place to start is with organized crime. I mean, from Huey P. Newton and the Black Panther Party to any given group during the Black Power movement, America has defined any group of black people fighting for their rights as organized crime. So when that trickled down into actual gangs like Bloods and Crips, imagine how much more cutthroat it became. Meanwhile, you look at white people doing the same things, and they don't even call them gangs. They call them the mafia, and keep Robert De Niro and Al Pacino cast in movies dripped in riches and gold. So what's the real difference between black and white organized crime? Racism. And why are they treated so differently? Racism. But to explain it a little bit deeper is my man from one of the top 5 greatest cities in the United States, Chicago, Six-Figure Dilla.
Thanks, Lynae. I certainly appreciate that. Yo, what's up? My name is Dilla. I'm a Chicago historian, and I'm also the brand ambassador for the DuSable Museum of Black History. I'm sitting inside of Quinn Chapel. It has the distinction of being Chicago's oldest church, but it's also the oldest black-owned property here in Chicago. Now, why am I sitting in a church? Because during its organizing days, when this church was being founded, you better believe that white folks in Chicago looked at this organization as a gang. When this church was downtown Chicago, they were very much helping enslaved Americans find freedom via the Underground Railroad, and they were looked at as a gang. When they moved to what we now call the South Loop, and they build this amazing church, and they're brave enough to paint Jesus as a black person, you better know that they were looked at as a gang. And so even before we get to the Great Migration, where African Americans are so-called coming to the North for better opportunity, when they arrive in these northern cities pretty early, they're still looked at as a gang. And that starts a trend that separates how, when blacks get together to protect themselves versus the names that they're called. And speaking of the Great Migration, I'm actually standing in front of a monument that acknowledges the Great Migration. It's a period of time in our country when about 6.5 million African Americans left southern rural towns to come to big northern cities. They thought they were coming to the north to get better opportunities. In many instances, they were getting treated worse than they were treated in the South. At every turn, when African Americans here in Chicago tried to leave out of the Black Belt, organized crime is what kept them in. When they wanted to be jazz and blues players, they had to deal with organized crime that ran the nightclubs. When they wanted to get jobs to do better for their family, they had to deal with organized crime that ran the unions. And even when they just wanted to get out the neighborhood to find a place to eat, they would be attacked and lynched, in many cases by gangs that were the precursors of organized crime. And at no point in any of that history did anyone call any of those people gangbangers. Right now, I'm standing in front of a vacant lot that used to be one of the Chicago public housing buildings that black folks were crammed into when they left the Black Belt, stacked on top of each other in a project with no support. So much so that organizations like the Black Panther Party of Self-Defense, well, they had to be the guys that provided the kids breakfast and physical so that they can go to school. And what was their reward for that? They were seen as some kind of violent insurrectionist organization, and their leader here in Chicago, Fred Hampton Sr., was targeted and assassinated at the age of 21. So that's why you got people like Larry Hoover and Jeff Ford and David Barksdale who come from Mississippi. They get here to Chicago, and they realize that the violence they left down south is still happening to them here in the north by white ethnic street gangs. And so they decide that they're not going for nothing. They're going to protect themselves, and they'll meet violence with violence. And now they're seen as the worst perpetuators of violence and crime to ever touch Chicago. When we talk about violence, think about this. During Al Capone's time, you know Al Capone, the guy where you can go downtown right now and buy his face on 7 different colored t-shirts. When Al Capone was in charge of the so-called streets of Chicago, more police officers were killed in the line of duty during his time than have been killed since. How's that for violence, Sister Lynae?
Didn't I tell you? Racism. Historically, white organized crime has been born out of greed, while black organized crime has been built out of necessity and desperation. Same crimes for lesser reasons, but with fewer consequences. Sounds on brand for America. When we come back, we'll dig into this a little bit more. Don't you move. Let's set the record straight on this whole black on black crime rhetoric. If we really want to talk about crime in black communities, we have to go deeper than lazy talking points. Yes, most urban street crimes are committed within communities, just like every other racial group. But here's the truth. The real threats to black survival aren't just coming from our neighborhoods. They're coming from police brutality, environmental racism, corporate exploitation, and, the system. This narrative that black on black crime is the root of our problems is a distraction. It stops us from examining what the systemic root is: underfunded schools, redline neighborhoods, food deserts, and job deserts. The real crime is a capitalist structure that creates concentrated poverty, housing instability, and a public health crisis fueled by gun violence. However, there are leaders getting busy doing the work. Across the country, black mayors are leading efforts to heal and protect their communities, making real progress in reducing crime, not through over-policing, but through opportunity, investment, and care. And tonight, we're joined by Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott, who is here to break down how he's rewriting the story of public safety in his city. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about it.
Well, thank you so much. We're so glad to have you. I want to keep this quick so I can be conscientious of your time, because I know you're a very busy man, keeping the streets of Baltimore safe and clean. So we've seen in press that Baltimore has its record fewest homicides in 50 years, with only 68 killings in the first 6 months of 2025. We've seen declines in other violent crimes as well. But what would you identify as the key turning point or decision that set this positive momentum in motion?
Yeah, listen, Lynae, I am a lifelong Baltimorean, and I was born in 1984. I grew up in Park Heights, one of our neighborhoods that is known for this horse race known as Preakness. But imagine living in a neighborhood where every third Saturday in May, your neighborhood is the center of the sports world, but every other day of the year, you weren't even treated as human. That was my life experience growing up. This is my 18th year in City Hall. I came as an intern at 23, and now I'm the CEO. What I decided to do, what we decided to do as a city, was have our first ever comprehensive violence prevention plan, which I laid out in late 2021. And that this is how we're doing it, because we are no longer putting the sole responsibility of reducing this public health issue known as gun violence on the backs of the women and men of our police department. It is a all and above approach. We start with our group violence reduction strategy, which we go to those individuals who we identify through data and through academia with our partners, who are the very likely, most likely people to not just be the victim, but the perpetrator of gun violence. And we say to them, we know who you are, we know what you do. They get a letter directly from me, and we will give you the help to change your life. Or you need housing, education, a job assistance, behavioral health, whatever, substance abuse help, whatever you need. But if you don't, we're going to remove you from the neighborhood through law enforcement. And when you look at the success that GVRS has had, many have taken us up on that, and some haven't, and many haven't. And those who told me to go kick rocks, they're going to go and sit in prison. But those who don't, and have taken that opportunity of now working for the city, running their own companies, and changed their lives around. But we, at the same time, we're putting this historic level of investment into community violence intervention, where we're paying people who used to be those involved in their life to prevent it from happening. When you think about us going and suing gun companies and going after gun traffickers and gun stores who are helping fuel this violence, because over 60% of the weapons that we recover on the streets of Baltimore come from other states. We are talking about focusing in every way to deal with gun violence. And while our partnerships matter with our community partners, with the state's attorney, with the attorney general, with our fabulous governor, Governor Moore, that is how we're doing it here in Baltimore.
Okay. So I want to take it a step back. You said you grew up in Park Heights, which is a neighborhood in Baltimore, and that sort of shaped your understanding of what violence looked like in your communities. Could you take sort of like a top-down view and let us know what you perceive to be the main causes of criminal activity in those neighborhoods for young people?
Yeah, when you think about, I became interested in public service. I will tell everyone since I was 6 or 7 years old that I was going to be the mayor of Baltimore, and that's driven by gun violence because I saw someone get shot at that age, right? And just knowing that people were supposed to care about my neighborhood, but they really didn't. But when you unpack that, right, especially I'm talking to you in the office where the first racial redlining bill in the country was signed by a mayor of Baltimore. It was started here and then weaponized and taken all around the country. You cannot have a conversation about gun violence in Baltimore without tying it to that history of that law and the disinvestment that was purposeful that happened in neighborhoods like Park Heights, where I grew up, but also West Baltimore, where a middle class and working black neighborhood with businesses and lawyers and doctors and people that were homeowners was just uprooted and destroyed to connect Interstate 70 and Interstate 95 to build the highway that we now call the highway to nowhere, because they do not connect. Because they never actually finished building the highway. They just destroyed that neighborhood. And when you add in the deindustrialization, where the jobs that like my uncles worked at when they first came here from North Carolina at Bethlehem Steel, or my granddad worked at General Motors, when those went away, and then you have the influx of for us was heroin, less so crack, and the drugs that are there. You have all of that melting pot of bad. Is how you end up with people who are in the situation that they're in. And then guns just show up, and it's easier for someone in my neighborhood in Park Heights when I was growing up to get a 40 ounce and a gun than it was for me to go sit in a classroom and have air conditioning.
Thank you so much. I asked that question because in today's episode, we're contextualizing what leads to criminality and or violent behavior. And to also just make sure people understand, it's not a race thing. It is a socioeconomic thing. And it's something that is a byproduct of the way spaces have been racialized and the way resources have been taken away from those communities. So thank you for giving us your firsthand account. I want to speak on the group violence reduction strategy that you spoke about. It launched back in 2022. And within the first 18 months, it led to a 33.8% drop in gun violence specifically. That's amazing. Now, you talked a little bit about some of the things that you offer, but can you walk us through that carrot and stick approach at the street level, particularly around life coaching and job training and the meaningful enforcement?
Yeah, I think, and thank you for that. I think this is what GVRS or focused deterrence, depending on where you are in the country, is something that's been proven. And now you just see myself and other mayors taking that to the next level. We always give big props and shout outs to the godfather of this movement, Mayor Baraka in Newark. We're just now standing on his shoulders. But this is how this works. So let's just say we're in West Baltimore, and we know that there's this group of folks who are at very high risk because of the activity that they're involved in, but also maybe the disputes that they're involved in with another group. And we want to try to figure out ways to help them. So we have our partners in ROCA and YAP. Obviously, this is a partnership between my office, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety Engagement, the police department, even though the police department works directly for me, our police commissioner, our state's attorney here in Baltimore, and the attorney general with our community partners. And so how this works is that there's actually meetings where we go through the individuals that we want to make that direct connection with. And myself, if I'm there, my office, the police, our violence interrupters, all of these individuals then sit in the room and determine who is the best person to make this notification, who's going to deliver the message in the letter to this person. We have organizations, ROCA and YAP, who are big partners here. We have other community moral voice partners from each of the districts. We're in 5 out of the 9 now districts that we operate GBRS, and we'll be in all 9 at the end of the year. And then we decide that person delivers the message. They bring the letter to them, and then they walk them through that. If that person is ready to get that help, then we start that immediately with all the partners in the full weight of city government, working with our other partners. But if not, we let them know this is your chance. There will not be another one. You cannot come to us if you're going to continue down the path you're on and tell the mayor basically to go jump off a bridge and think that you're going to continue to do what you do. So we have had so many people take us up on the opportunity, and I think it's one in particular that struck me last year at one of our celebrations was a young man who said he had been involved in that life since he was 12 years old, and no one told him he could do anything any different until they showed up at his door. And then I was at my oldest son, my 9-year-old's basketball game on a Friday night over the spring, and this young man said, "Mr. Mayor, I got to show you something." And he went and grabbed his phone and showed me a picture of the letter that I had sent him. And I said, "Well, you ready for help?" And he says, "Oh, no, I'm good. I'm already involved in ROCA." That is a great thing. And when you look at the folks that we are working with, over 90% of them have remain successful, right? When you look at the recidivism and the re-victimization rates, they're so extremely low, and it shows the impact. But we've also had to remove groups too, and folks who want to see this live, and in fact, they actually can watch it in a Emmy-nominated documentary about me setting this program up called The Body Politic, that's available on all streaming platforms.
Such beautiful stories. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I think what stood out most to me is the personal touch and the individualized care these young people are getting. And something that I'm saying often now is people are asking me how we build community trust in a time such as this. And I say, well, we have to come knocking at each other's doors before oppression does, or before fascism does. And I think what you're doing with ROCA and your strategies is an excellent representation of that. And I think it does wonders for community engagement for sure, but I do wonder how we're reconciling Baltimore's police, the relationship between police and citizens. I know the police right now are under a federal consent decree stemming from reform mandates after the Justice Department found the city's police engage in unconstitutional policing practices. So what about the dual priorities it seems the police department has? They want to pursue aggressive enforcement against violent offenders, but they also want to improve community trust. So how are we sort of balancing that advent? I know that community leaders are engaging in the young people in a healthy way, but how are police also making sure they're doing that as well? Yeah, listen, I tell anyone that listens that if you were to tell a young Councilman Brandon Scott that police departments and mayors from around the country would be coming to me saying, like, how have you guys reformed your police department and been able to reduce violence at the same time? When I was first on the city council, I probably would have laughed at you, but we've been able to do it. And I think what we have been able to do is get us light years away from where we were, and realizing that we're still light years away from where we want to be. And it comes with this, for me, it comes with this personal touch, because I was not that long ago, right? I always tell folks that the difference for me is that I lived it, right? It's different when you've had the gun in your face, and it's also different when you've been the one sat down in handcuffs in your own neighborhood just because you had long hair and wore a basketball jersey. It's very different. And what we have been able to do together with the community, and I think it's very interesting and different. We are a city that asks
for a consent decree, right? They didn't come in and say that we were going to do it. We asked to be put into this. The police department asked to be a part of this effort. And I think that made the work a little different. And what we've been able to do is not only improve that relationship at the surface level, but also because of the way that we decided to do our strategy. When you think about the erosion of the police community relations in Baltimore, especially through the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, a lot of that had to do with zero tolerance, or as we used to call it, breathing while black policing. And I always would tell folks, and I say to everybody that asks me this question, my grandmother, when she was alive, never said she didn't want police in my neighborhood, right? In our neighborhood. She said that she didn't want them stopping me and my brothers and my cousins and everyone else who wasn't involved in that life every single day versus the people who were involved in it, never seeming to be ending up in handcuffs. It was the way that we were treated, right? And I think now we have that balance and we're focusing them on the people who they should be focused on, and not everybody that looks like me in a neighborhood is a criminal. And the truth of the matter is that even when you talk to them, right? I talk to, obviously, my police officers every day. Many of them will tell you that the way that they used to do it was wrong, and they were being forced to do things that they knew were not going to have a impact. They will tell you that they knew that it was always dumb for them to go out and just arrest a bunch of people with substance abuse issues, because that wasn't going to drive crime. These people were sick. They weren't inherently criminal, and that not everybody, they knew who were the folks that they needed to focus on, but they were directed to go out and make a certain amount of arrests. And when you look at those numbers themselves, it doesn't add up. In 2003, the city of Baltimore had 278 homicides. We had like 91,000 arrests that year. Last year, we had significantly less homicides with significantly less arrests, because it's never been about how many people are arrested. It's about who, and having that balance. And we still have a long way to go to even complete our consent decree, but the way that we're policing in a constitutional matter, to the point where, to be quite honest, sometimes people are angry with me and the police. They're like, oh, well, they don't want I can't just call 911 when there's a bunch of young men outside and the police don't just come and move them. No, they're not. They, like people, we have to have real reasons to do this kind of stuff. We just can't live in this culture anymore where if I don't like it, the police will just move people for me. They're going to be focused on the folks that are bringing the guns, using the guns, committing the crimes, the substance, all of those things, not just everyone that you don't like.
Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your stories. And again, I cannot speak enough on how much the personal touch is necessary. And I see that you put yourself very much into this work. And I'm sure you've made 7-year-old Brandon Scott very proud to be mayor of this city and to be doing such phenomenal work. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
And that's what I'm talking about, folks. Results. But here's something we neglected to point out the entire episode. This idea that black people are simply more violent, or that black-on-black crime is the most salient crime issue, is not only flawed because of where the blame is placed, but the numbers simply also do not support it. Let's talk about gun violence specifically. Gun violence accounts for 73% of homicides in the United States, compared to 39% in Canada, 22% in Australia, and 4% in England and Wales. But hear me when I say this. The guns are the leading cause of death of all children and teens in America, not just the black ones. The latest numbers from FBI crime reporting shows that in 2018, 89% of black people were killed by other black people, and 81% of white people were killed by other white people. So there's really only an 8% difference. And on top of that, we only make up 12% of the population, and y'all make up 61%, so at the end of the day, y'all still dropping more bodies. Now, are the YN shenanigans on the internet helping our case?
Turn the wig around.
I think the fuck not. But not too much on those YNs. A choice few are apparently keeping the block safe for unsuspecting women, children, and the elderly who may or may not be in the wrong hood. But I'm not gonna lie, chaos does find itself in our streets quite often. But that chaos is by design. It is a part of the simulation that white is right, or that white is all that is pure and good in the world, and that black people will automatically bring down the property value because they will inevitably be firing off rounds in a neighborhood near you. Well, that could help with the gentrification. No, we don't condone violence over here. Never mind. The point is, people, systemic injustice is just that, folks. It's a system designed to manufacture a specific output. a machine with cogs of inequity in housing, income, healthcare, food security, policing, education, and so many other things, turning and churning one another in the process to bring about several things, but the criminalization of Black people being very high on the list. And I'm not making excuses, people. I'm making an argument so we can get down to the root of the issue. And all the evidence is clear, and everything points to one conclusion. Resolved. Black on Black crime still, in fact, is white people's fault. So never miss a beat on the People's Brief. I'll be back next week with more time.